Welcome back. We're continuing our discussion with Tom Marazzo, the author of this book, The People's Emergency Act. Tom, again, congrats on writing this book.
Thank you.
Let's continue our discussion. So you were essentially fired from your job at a college as a professor, essentially because you didn't get the COVID vaccine, but they came up with another reason. That's fine. So how did you go from that to becoming pretty much the unofficial spokesperson for the Convoy?
That's a strange story in itself. At the time was forced to sell my house and then move towards the Kingston area. And just through circumstance, I met other like-minded people. And in those conversations, they found out that I was retired from the military. So a group called Canada Unity was affiliated with one of my new friends in the Kingston area. And when the convoy rolled into the city, they were there for 2 days. It became clear to them that they really didn't know what to do next. They just knew, the biggest goal they had at the beginning was just let's get to Ottawa and we'll see what happens. And so that's where I came in, where Canada Unity was looking for some help. And for me, as a military officer, this was really about a sustainment plan. So I was contacted by Canada Unity. They asked if I could just do a phone call. The phone call led to a commitment, can you just come to Ottawa and help us? Because I was close. So within 3 hours of that phone call, I was standing in the center of the conference room at the Arc Hotel in Ottawa. And, I had closed for 5 days. I just expected I'll go help build a sustainment plan. I'll find somebody really smart, really keen, give the plan, and then go home. And that just wasn't the case. I found, I was there for 22 of the 24 days. And my role every week just seemed to kept evolving. And I never had any intention of being in front of a camera at all. That's not why I went there.
Right.
It wasn't my interest. In fact, I joked and said that, when the history book is written about the convoy, if my name's not in it, I'm fine with it. I'm perfectly okay. But as a result, there was just through a series of circumstances, I ended up doing some of the live streams and trying to communicate a very different message to the police and to the politicians.
So let's dive into that a bit. As a laywoman, well, I guess I was keenly interested as a journalist, but really as a laywoman watching from the news channels and news coverage, you heard what the police were saying in Ottawa, we heard what the government was saying, and then we sort of got some scraps of messaging, depending on where you tuned in, from the Convoy ad hoc organization. What was the objective?
For some people, there's many objectives to the convoy. And I think that has a negative impact on 2 years later, people still wanting to go back and do more. But ultimately, the objective was always end the COVID-19 mandates, end the lockdowns, end the Arrive Can, end the mandatory vaccination for COVID. It was everything centered around ending those mandates. But it was difficult to rein that in because different groups that showed up had different objectives. And so you were trying to stay more singular in what your mission actually was, but the mission creep seemed to be a real problem. But ultimately, it was always just to end those federal mandates related to COVID-19.
Which is why the truckers really kind of catapulted to the front, because they were faced with some very restrictive measures when they were going back and forth over the border if they were unvaccinated.
Yes, where they would, even if they crossed into the United States, didn't exit their vehicles, turned around and came back, they were required to quarantine for 14 days. And so that was for them just a bridge too far. And they said, no, that's ridiculous. They can't earn a living. So they united in a way that no other profession in Canada could unite and achieve what they did in Ottawa. Because of these big, massive campers that they had on wheels, and they could live in them indefinitely for weeks on end. So that's a big component of this.
And quickly, it started with truckers, but it quickly evolved into, I think, many Canadians just kind of saying, hey, this is where we all need to go. Let's go protest.
Yeah, I met every sort of profession, every walk of life that Canada has to offer, I met at the Convoy. You know, people, I met a homeless man that was there, formerly homeless, but he was still there fighting, getting his life together. I met doctors, I met lawyers, I met other professors, teachers, I met everybody, not
Okay.
just truckers.
We're going to pick up this conversation when we come back from these commercial breaks. Please stick around.